This meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The time is 6 p.m. Roll call.
All board members are present.
Thank you. Recognition item, recognition of student representatives and leading the pledges, Dr. Ely.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. We have two great SCUC ISD representatives here to lead us in the pledges this evening. From Schertz-Cibolo Elementary, we have fourth grader Mallory Olson, and from Schlatter Intermediate, we have Finley Crozier. They are being introduced by their principals. We have Clary Bristow, proud principal of Schertz-Cibolo Elementary, and Ms. Trina Simmons, the proud interim principal of Schlatter Intermediate. It looks like Ms. Bristow's going first.
There we go. Hey, I like going first. Get the power here. Good evening, President Perkins, Dr. Ely, and members of the board. I'm Clary Bristow, principal at Schertz-Cibolo Elementary, and I would like to introduce to you our student representative, Mallory Olson, who's in fourth grade. Mallory is a member of our Schertz-Cibolo Orff Ensemble, as well as the House of Altruismo, which is the House of the Givers. She exhibits many of the traits of a learner in SCUC and is kind in making sure everyone feels as though they are part of the team. Her leadership roles at Schertz-Cibolo include service on our safety patrol each morning. Mallory's favorite subject is math, and she likes to practice ballet, and she is also an artist that enjoys painting. She is joined this evening by her mom, Julie Olson, who teaches reading as a dyslexia intervention teacher at Schlatter Intermediate, and her father, Bo Olson, and her sisters. She's also joined this evening by Jillian Pratt supporting, who serves as a librarian at Rose Garden Elementary. SCUC pride runs deep in this family. Parents, please stand and be recognized.
Good evening, President Perkins, Dr. Ely, and members of the board. I am Trina Simmons, interim principal at Schlatter Intermediate, and I would like to introduce to you our student representative, Finley Crozier, who is in 5th grade. Finley serves as our student council vice president. Finley exhibits many of the traits of a learner in SCUC, and she is a skilled communicator. She enjoys negotiating and convincing others, and she loves giving speeches. Finley's favorite subject is science and English language arts. She loves to read and enjoys playing volleyball, video games, and the trumpet. Finley is joined by her parents, James and Jamie Crozier, and her big sister, Shalom. Please stand. These two exceptional students will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Come on. Come on.
Sorry, I was given permission.
Well done, ladies. Thank you very much. Next, we have President's Welcome. I want to take this time to wish everyone a Happy New Year. It is not a new school year, but it is a new start in the semester, and we'll treat it like a new year. And it looks like a great turnout out there. I'm glad to see everybody. We're going to recognize people, and then we're going to get in with the business, but I certainly appreciate everybody being here tonight, and thank you all for being here. Next, we have Vice President recitation of District Call to Action and Learner Outcomes. Ed Finley.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. President. The SCUC-ISD Call to Action. Through high-quality and student-centered learning experiences, students will leave SCUC-ISD confident, empowered, and prepared with the skills to pursue their individual passions. SCUC-ISD Learner Outcomes. Every student will graduate or transition with, number one, adaptability, problem-solving, and social skills needed to independently function as appropriate for their future endeavors. Number two, understanding of their greatest assets and how they can contribute to industry, society, and their community. Number three, appropriate understanding and application of professional and personal communication skills, including verbal and written expression. And number four, skills to achieve their personal, academic, military, and career potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Next, we have item 7, Board Recitation of District Belief Statements.
We believe all students have the capacity to learn and excel. We believe a safe, secure, and supportive environment is paramount to learning.
We believe in living our core values of leadership, character, commitment, service, and learning. We believe engaging, interactive, and authentic teaching creates empowered, inspired learners prepared for our changing world.
We believe technology is a relevant tool that enhances learning in and beyond the classroom. We believe in a professional learning community that fosters collaboration for continuous improvement.
We believe transparent, clear, and timely communication among all is critical to success. We believe measures of success go beyond standardized testing.
We believe public education is defined by the local community with limited state involvement.
Thank you, trustees. Next, we have item 8, Vice President's overview of good governance indicators and board member ethics. Ed Finley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, our good governance self-check has, let me make sure I get this right, has 10 items. The second 9, there's 10. I'm going to recite number 2 tonight. The board has a written plan in place for regular review and adoption, reaffirmation of the district's mission, vision, values, and goals. The criteria for consideration of this item: the board is regularly briefed about the status of and the administrator's plans for accomplishing the current goals. Board documents from the goal-setting process indicate the board considered a broad range of issues and desired outcomes before limiting goals to those listed, those included in its list. And all current members of the board and the superintendent have agreed in a formal adoption or readoption by the board to be guided by board-adopted mission, vision, values, and measurable goals. Number 2, our board ethics. It is the expectation all trustees adhere to the board code of ethics and strive to promote ethical behavior in the governance structure throughout the organization and interactions with workforce, vendors, and stakeholders. Tonight I'm going to read student-centered focus. I will be continuously guided by what is best for all students of the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Next, we have recognition items. We'll start with the recognition of the student representatives for the month of January. Dr. Ely.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. We have a couple great representatives here this evening from our 2 comprehensive high schools. And we held a drawing at the beginning, decide who was going to go first. It was determined that Clemens High School will go first. So coming up to the podium is Amy Schertz-Cibolo, proud principal of Clemens High School, and she's going to introduce us to Mariana Williams. I'm sorry. No, she's not. To Maya Jones Jones, sorry. Sorry, Maya. Sorry, Maya Jones. I apologize for that.
Good evening, President Perkins, Dr. Ely, and members of the board. I am Amy Schertz-Cibolo, principal of Samuel Clemens High School. I would like to introduce you to our student representative, Maya Jones, who is a senior at Clemens High School this year. Maya has been a student in SCUC ISD for the past 12 years. While at Clemens High School, she's been a part of several clubs and organizations. Currently, Maya is the vice president of the class of 2023, the president of Texas Association of Future Educators, or TAFE, she is currently representing this evening. As part of TAFE, Maya attended and competed in the Teach Tomorrow Summit State Conference, where in 2021-2022 she qualified for state in lesson planning and delivery. This year, Maya was also an area qualifier for the same events. She exhibits the traits of an SCUC learner in that she leads with grace and poise in all avenues of school and community life. As a class leader, she has collaborated on several class and campus-led activities throughout her attendance at Clemens. Maya is innovative, and she seeks guidance from her teachers and fellow student leaders as well. Most notably, Maya has been an active leader in our Ready, Set, Teach program as well. It has helped her decide to pursue a degree in secondary education with a focus in history, in the hopes of becoming a history teacher with the intent to attend Montana State University in the fall. She would like to earn her doctorate as well in education and aspires to become a principal one day. Maya is joined by her mother, Maria Tamez, and her aunt Sally Salas, as well as her father, Anthony Jones. She is also accompanied by our wonderful TAFE sponsor, Miss Wendy Frisbee. Would you all please stand to be recognized? I present to you Miss Maya Tamez Jones.
Good evening, Dr. Ely, President Perkins, and members of the board. My name is Maya Tamez Jones. I am a senior at Samuel Clemens High School and have been part of the Education and Training Program for 4 years. I am vice president of my senior class, and I am a proud member of TAFE. No, we are not a candy-making club, but TAFE stands for the Texas Association of Future Educators. Being in TAFE has allowed me many opportunities and has allowed me to further explore the education career. Our district supports its fifth-year teachers with the Practicum in Education program. I would like to thank all of the teachers who make this program possible by letting RST students into their classes to teach them all the ins and outs of teaching. This program allows students to intern in schools and to try different grade levels. Because of this opportunity, I am able to earn my Educational Aid Certification 1 and was able to pick my college major more efficiently and learned which ages I worked with best. I have been lucky enough to work with Miss Bishop from Watts, Miss Buck from Rose Garden, and realized kinder is the place for me. I have also gotten to spend time with Miss Pratt, the librarian at Rose Garden. TAFE has allowed me the experience to travel with classmates for competitive events. Last year, I competed at state in Lesson Plan and Delivery Humanities. I taught Miss Bishop's class about Frida Kahlo during Hispanic Heritage Month. This year, I participated at a regional contest in Project Visualized Service and teacher-created material art. Last year, TAFE had 3 students advance and compete to nationals in Washington, D.C. 2 of those students placed 5th in the nation for impromptu speaking and received scholarships. I would also like to thank our sponsor, Ms. Frisbee, because without her running the course, this would not be possible. I have had her for 3 years, and her passion and dedication to this course and program never fails to cease me. I am so proud to be able to say I was part of TAFE and part of the Practicum in Education course. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. If you'd please welcome Tracy Bandy, Associate Principal at Steele High School, to introduce her student, Senior Mariana Williams. Ms. Bandy.
Good evening. Good evening, President Perkins, Dr. Ely, and members of the board. I'm Tracy Bandy, Associate Principal at Steele High School, and I would like to introduce our student representative for tonight, Mariana Williams, a senior representing FCCLA this evening. Mariana is an active member of our FCCLA chapter, serving as president for the last 4 years. She has also served at the regional level as vice president of membership and regional president for FCCLA. Currently, she is the state vice president of competitive events. Mariana manages to balance her extracurriculars with athletics as a 2-year volleyball player and 3-year wrestler, currently serving as the captain of our girls wrestling team as well. She plans to take all of those skills to college at Texas A&M Corpus, majoring in nursing. She exhibits many of the traits of a learner in SCUC, that she contributes to community through all of her service in FCCLA, and she values others through her leadership as an officer in multiple areas on campus. Her favorite subject is, of course, PALS, because she lives to help others. She's supported by her parents, Kiana and Mark Williams, who couldn't be here tonight, as well as her FCCLA sponsor, Jana Mahoney, and CTE coordinator, Amy Massey. Please stand. Steele High School is proud to present to you Mariana Williams.
Good evening, Dr. Ely, President Perkins, and members of the board. My name is Mariana Williams, and I'm a senior at Steele High School. In my 4 years, I've been an active member of Steele FCCLA, holding a leadership position for all of them. FCCLA stands for Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America, a student-led, nonprofit vocational organization with family as its main focus, which provides members with opportunities for personal growth and leadership development through national programs that promote community service, physical wellness, and personal growth, as well as star event competitions, leadership trainings, and workshops to teach etiquette, proper communication, and public speaking skills. Through FCCLA, I've had the opportunity to develop my leadership skills, prepare for my future, and network with students across the nation. I've held 2 regional offices, including Vice President of Membership and Region 5 President, and this year I'm serving as the State Vice President of Competitive Events. Holding this position is an honor and so rewarding, yet comes with a heavy workload. In 2 weeks from now, my officer team and I will host a leadership conference for over 6,000 students in our region. We planned this entire event this summer at a leadership camp where we worked on public speaking, writing memos, and organizing events. Steele FCCLA will be taking 12 teams to the leadership conference this year. They are showcasing our awesome chapter, culinary projects, and projects that promote literacy. I'm also very proud of Steele FCCLA. Steele FCCLA is very active on campus and in the district. We partner up with the community and schools and help to plan Gold Santa. We also host the Mother-Son event and the Daddy-Daughter dance. The profit raised from the Daddy-Daughter dance, we donate to a local charity. While my life has been changed with FCCLA, sorry, which equipped me with the tools necessary to be a successful leader and young adult, none of my success would have been possible without the help and support of my advisor, Jana Mahoney, and SCUC-ISD. SCUC-ISD has supported Steele FCCLA by helping offset costs for competitions and conferences where our chapter competes in events such as Chapter and Review, Community Service Project, and culinary competitions. They also provided us with a platform for advocacy within our community and graciously allowed us to grow our chapter and promote our organization by hosting countless community service events. Our chapter also had numerous star event national champions, regional officers, and scholarship recipients. Even a project on nutrition and wellness be presented by national officers to the United States Food and Drug Administration in Washington, D.C. Steele High School and students of FCS classes are truly grateful to have the opportunity to be part of a CTSO that works hard to encourage the success of its members and be students of a district who provides opportunities for all students to excel in not only academics, but extra and co-curricular activities as well. Thank you.
All right, we're still on recognition items, and the next item is School Board Recognition Month. Dr. Ely.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. We pause around the state of Texas every January and recognize special people in the state who give of their time, give of their family's time to be able to serve a community, and those are school board trustees. I can say without a doubt that we have one of the best, most premier school boards in the state of Texas, and I've never found any more professional, dedicated group of individuals than the 7 people who sit in front of you today. The work that they do on a week in, week out basis to get prepared to lead this district is really astronomical. They have to do things like learn about curriculum and instructional techniques. They learn about assessment and accountability. They even learn a little bit about finance, and tonight, I'm sure everybody's going to want to stay for us when we go over the audit, but we're going to go over the audit tonight. And they have to know a little bit about governmental accounting standards. What they do, as I said, on a week in and week out basis to lead this community and to make sure that each of our 15,500 students and over 1,800 employees have what they need to have is truly amazing. And I just want to thank them for their dedication to this community. This semester will be even more for this group in school boards because the Texas legislature is back in session. The 88th legislature gavelled in last week. And I want you to know this group right here is going to be going next month on the 21st. Before a board meeting, we're going to be traveling to Austin so that they can have time with our elected representatives to talk with them directly face to face about the needs of our school system and our students. So I just want to thank you for all that you do for this community and all that you do for this great school system. And we've got Ms. Dauphiné and Mr. Reynolds are going to take us through, and we've got a little gift for you. And we hope that you really enjoy it because we enjoyed providing them for you. So Ms. Dauphiné.
Thank you, Dr. Ely. It is tradition in our district for each of our schools to choose a title that is selected and then dedicated to a school board member, and you sign it, and then it becomes a part of our school library, so it can remain there for the life of the school in the library. And so this evening, we have a principal representative and a student representative from each school. We're going to introduce them, the book that they are dedicating, and to the board member that it will go to. They're going to come up with you and get a photo, and then at the end, we're going to have a large group photo as well. All right.
Yeah, if we could have the board members come right here and line up. Oh. That could make it a little easier on everybody.
Okay.
No, sir. We'll come to you. We'll call your name so the student will know to go to the.
Thank you. That would be very helpful. Are we ready? All right. When we do call your name, you can just come to the front, and your student's going to meet you there for your photo, okay? Tonight, we're going to start with our 18-plus program, represented by Ms. Daria Whalen and our student, Jalen Sherrill. Jalen has with her the book this evening, Guinness World Records 2023, for Miss Belinda Evans. Jalen keeps her book. And she can go to the back, and then we're going to do a group photo. All right. Next, we have Cibolo Valley Elementary with Miss Rhonda Young Michael as the principal, 4th grade student Faith Anderson, sharing the book Everybody to Mr. Robert Westbrook. Green Valley Elementary with Miss Amy Denman as the principal, Fourth grade student Chase Salter is sharing the book Jurassic World, The Ultimate Pop-Up with Mr. Jerry Perkins. Pascal Elementary with our principal, Mrs. Allison Miller. Fourth grade student Luke Rosas, also sharing Jurassic World, The Ultimate Pop-Up with Mr. Ed Finley. From Rose Garden Elementary, we have Mrs. Sarah Reed, principal, with Gabriella Nicholson, fourth grade student, sharing the book The Year We Learned to Fly with Miss Letitia Seaver. From Schertz Elementary, we have Mr. Stephen Piles, assistant principal, with our second grade student, Lucena Morales, also sharing The Year We Learned to Fly with Mr. Dan Swart. From Sipple Elementary, we have Miss Clary Bristow, principal, with our fourth grade student, Mallory Olson, also sharing this very popular book, The Year We Learned to Fly, with Miss Amy Thomas. From Watts Elementary, we have Principal Lee Kahn with fourth grade student Elena Williams sharing Creepy Korean with Mr. Dan Swart. From Wiederstein Elementary, we have Ms. Ashley Hawk as the principal with our second grade student, Sophia Badar. She is sharing The Year We Learned to Fly with Mr. Robert Westbrook. From Jordan Intermediate, we have Miss Tina Curtis, the principal, with Charlotte Ogle and Harry Potter and the Order of Phoenix with Miss Amy Thomas. From Wilder Intermediate, we have Mr. Phil Jackson, the principal, with a fifth grade student, Bryce Pope, sharing I Survived the Wellington Avalanche of 1910 with Mr. Ed Finley. From Schlother Intermediate, we have our interim principal, Trina Simmons, with our sixth grade student, Gianna Gonzalez, sharing The Sea in Winter with Mr. Jerry Perkins.
From Dobie Junior High, we have Principal Mr. Vernon Simmons with 8th grade student Tristan Muha to share Friends Forever with Miss Leticia Seaver. Corbett Junior High, we have Principal Mr. Rashad Ray with 8th grade student Rihanna Cuellar to share Restart with Miss Belinda Evans. From Allison Steele, we have Miss Cassandra Gracia standing in for Mr. Joey Trevino, could not be here this evening, presenting We Can Be Heroes to Mr. Dan Swart. From Steele High School, we have Associate Principal Tracy Bandy, along with Miss Marina Williams, Senior, to present We Can Be Heroes to Mr. Perkins. From Clemens High School, we have Principal Miss Amy Sarazati with student Senior Maya Tamez Jones to present Salam We Love to Miss Belinda Evans. And from our DAP campus, we have Principal Stacy Cerna to present We Can Be Heroes to Miss Leticia Seaver. Thank you. Do you want a group picture with everybody? We want a group picture with everyone. We'll put the board on top, and then everybody else, if you'd make your way back down here.
All right, we got about a minute, and then we're gonna start recognition up again.
You think this is here for me? Is that perfect? Well, tonight we honor students who are part of our Texas Association. Usually if you start talking, people, you're going to smash the,
No, I'm gonna,
read the agenda item.
yes. Continuing with our recognition items, recognition of student achievements presented by Ernie Reynolds.
You're good.
Good evening, President Perkins, Dr. Ely, members of the board. We'll start this off right. Tonight we'll honor students who are part of our Texas Association of Future Educators program that have been named state qualifiers. These students qualified as they competed in many contests where they displayed the knowledge and skills in several ways, such as lesson planning, presentation, techniques, overall education, and occupational skills. In addition, their understanding of these techniques or these strategies and their passion for their education system shine through in their dedication to preparing for this competition. We will also celebrate student athletes that participate in volleyball that receive recognition as academic all-state and/or all-state qualifier. These student athletes who have achieved academic all-state and performed outstandingly in the following categories: grade point average, class rank, ACT, and SAT scores. In addition, those named all-state have been highly successful athletes throughout the season. We applaud them for their commitment and dedication to perform with the highest of excellence academically and athletically. The first group that we'll introduce are our Clemens High School Taffy students. Haley, yeah, we can give them a round of applause. Go ahead. Menjares. Haley Menjanes, Children's Literature K through 3, Differentiated Lessons, Portfolio. Rachel Shoemake, Ethical Dilemma, Impromptu Lesson, Impromptu Speaking. Ian Gary, Ethical Dilemma, Impromptu Speaking. Alexa Salazar, Creative Lecture. Ava Moreno, Portfolio. We'd also like to recognize the Clemens High School Taffy sponsor, Miss Wendy Frisbee, for her attendance tonight, and thank her for her commitment. Riley Sheldon. We'll take one group picture with everybody. Sorry, Riley. Riley participated in an interactive bulletin board. If you guys want to make your way up right up front, we'll take a group picture. We have three young ladies that participated in volleyball that we're going to recognize from Clemens High School. Two of them could not be here, but we're going to go ahead and recognize them. First, Olivia Toner, TGCA Academic All-State, THSCA Second Team Academic All-State. Elena, go ahead. Elena Villarreal, TGCA Academic All-State, and THSCA Honorable Mention Academic All-State. Brooke Zoldi, TGCA Academic All-State, and THSCA Second Team Academic All-State. What- Let's do this as well. Please also recognize head volleyball coach Robin Wonderlick. Miss Coach Wonderlick, if you would come up here and take a picture as too, well, please. Also. She not here? I'm 0 for 2. Thank you, ma'am. Student athletes from Steele High School, Jade Munson, TGCA Academic All-State, and THSCA Academic All-State. Honorable mention. Mackenzie Owen, TGCA Academic All-State, and THSCA Academic All-State Second Team. We would also like to thank our head coach at Steele High School, Ms. Jordan Medill, for joining us tonight and her commitment and strong leadership. We'd like to take a group picture as well. Okay.
Next, we have recognition of school resource officers in honor of National Law Enforcement Day, January 9th, presented by Dr. Edwards.
Thank you, President Perkins, Dr. Ely, and members of the board. It's my pleasure to introduce or present to you our school resource officers in honor of National Law Enforcement Day. On Monday, January the 9th, 2023, members in all communities across the country showed their appreciation and support by celebrating National Law Enforcement Day. This day highlights our law enforcement personnel who serve every day in the line of duty and shine a light on the selflessness of law enforcement and their loved ones. Not only do they serve and protect, but the individuals of law enforcement also solidify communities and uphold order in areas we as citizens often overlooked. This evening, we would like to recognize the excellent student resource officers at work in our schools. Representing their agencies, I'd like to introduce Chief Lowry, who is here. And actually, if you guys want to start making your way up, we're going to take your picture too. Followed by someone we work very closely with, Sergeant Trevino. We also have Corporal Flowers with us tonight. Officer Kuntz. And Officer Schmidt. Joining us from Cibolo, we have Lieutenant Wilkowitz. Officer De Los Santos. And Officer Leos. On behalf of the students, On behalf of the students and the department, we appreciate and celebrate our school resource officers and extend them our appreciation for the dedication and service. I will say that I appreciate Mr. Westbrook and Mr. Finley joining me in wearing blue to celebrate the blue. I know that's hard for you, Mr. Westbrook. And then also recognize that we're also going to celebrate the boys, which I know is hard for you, Mr. Finley.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. All right, next we have Curriculum Celebration Awareness, recognition of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, January 16th. Serena Georges Penny.
Good evening, Dr. Ely, President Perkins, and members of the board. On the third Monday in January each year, we take a moment to honor the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. More than 50 years after his assassination in 1968, Dr. King continues to be remembered as one of the most influential and inspirational leaders in history. As a Nobel Peace Prize recipient, Dr. King is remembered as a prominent leader in the civil rights movement and a pioneering historical figure whose impact can still be felt today. From reading about Dr. King's life and work, listening and diving deeply into his speeches, envisioning a better world based on his ideas and values, SCUC students will be learning about his life, the impact he made on the civil rights movement, and his significance to American culture and history. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a wordsmith whose quotes about kindness, courage, unity, and beyond continue to inspire. In recognition, we will end this curriculum recognition with this quote from Dr. King: "The time is always right to do what is right."
Thank you, Serena. Next, we have public comments. And I show one. The Board of Trustees will now hear public comment statements. In order to provide consistency and fairness to all individuals, public comments will be held in accordance with Board Policy BED Local and procedures outlined in Administrative Regulation BED. The Board strongly discourages inappropriate comments on individual personnel or students in public session. Complaints or concerns will be considered by the Board only after the complaint has followed the guidelines prescribed by the applicable policies such as DGBA Local, FNG Local, or GF Local. Public comments will be limited to individuals who signed up to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting before the board meeting was called to order. An individual who signs up to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting may not relinquish their time to another individual. No public comment shall exceed 3 minutes. To ensure public compliance with time limitations, a yellow card will be held up by the board secretary at 2 minutes, and a red card will be held up at 3 minutes. Tonight we have Alan Leyendecker.
Hit the button where the green light comes on.
That better?
Yes,
sir. Good evening. I'm not only a resident of SCUC, I'm also a teacher here in the district. I want to talk about some unfilled teaching positions. The decision to cut teaching positions or not fill them is more than just a numbers game of having more kids in a classroom. The biggest impact of this has been on the freshman classes. Many of these freshman classes are filled with 30 or more students. There's also been, there's also been a significant increase of students requiring classroom modifications via IEPs and 504s. It is the teacher's responsibility to ensure all modifications are implemented, even if it is physically impossible given the size of the class and time constraints. The freshman year is the most challenging because students have to acclimate to a higher level of rigor, behavior, and responsibility. A large part of each freshman class enters high school lacking requisite skills for high school coursework. What happens in the freshman year reverberates for the next 3 years. It sets the stage. The year of remote learning, followed by a year of hybrid learning, were a disaster. The learning gaps are tremendous, and there is no time programmed in our pacing documents for remediation or reteaching. Discipline problems have increased. Social emotional problems have increased. All has taken its toll on the students, and they bring that into the classroom with them. We are back to business as usual, but our students are not back to usual. The expectation is for teachers to somehow navigate through all this with little to no support and with larger class sizes. Cutting positions that increase class size sets teachers and students up for failure. Many of the class expectations are beyond our control and capability, and yet we are expected to make it all work. The expectations for classroom teachers far exceed the time and ability to meet them. Larger classes exasperate this. Teachers are burned out. They're tired, they're angry, demoralized, and stressed. Teachers are in an untenable position and many take each failure personally. Teachers are asked to do too much and are paid too little. Restore the cut positions. How many, excuse me. We need to focus on the classroom like a laser. I ask that every decision that's made, I would consider one simple question in mind. Will this help or hinder teachers and students learning in the classroom? Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you for your input. Next, we have a superintendent's update. Dr. Ely.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I want to highlight a few things that are going on here in the district as the calendar turns over to January. I hope that everybody did have a safe and happy holiday season and a very happy new year to everyone. Do want to visit just a little bit about our student mental health and safety series, where we'll have our second installment in that program, and it will be happening next Monday, the 23rd. We will be joined by representatives from the San Antonio Council on Alcohol and Drug Awareness, and it will be held, here in this room? Yes, yes, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Yes, it'll be held in this room on Monday, the 23rd, and we'll, I think it's going to be important for us to sit and talk about drugs and what's happening with youth and disturbing trends and fentanyl and other things that we're hearing about. So we're excited that Cicada will be able to be here with us and be able to provide some good information to us. As we round out the rest of the year, we'll have 4 more of these, each month. February will be building resilience and overcoming obstacles. March will be dealing with anxiety. April will be bullying and cyberbullying. And May will be social media and internet safety. Did want to talk a little bit about employee recruitment and retention, and just to remind everybody who is an employee of SCUC ISD that on the January 27th, we will be receiving our $500 employee retention check from the school district. This was a part of our compensation plan that we had at the beginning of the year. It's a great time if you're like me and you overspent on Christmas and you got your credit card bill in January. That is a good time to have this. It's also just good to be able to support people all throughout this organization as we deal with higher prices and price of eggs and gas and everything that seems to be going up. So I appreciate the board and their wisdom and their generosity for making this available, and I appreciate the timing as well. So we're excited to be able to share that with all of our employees here at the end of this month. Another thing that's going on this month is we're preparing for our combined community advisory committee meeting, which is going to be on the 1st, February the 1st. And we will be going over our campus capacity and utilization update. We'll have our demographer here to go update our demographic projections for the current year. We will do bond capacity projections based on information we have from our not only our financial analyst as far as how much money we might have available based on financial conditions in the district, but also appreciate Mr. Mosley's work with AGCM to try to figure out in the future what could potential costs be if we had to build a school or put a renovation, those types of things. So all of those kind of go into our campus utilization presentation, which we'll go over in great detail with CCAC on the 1st of next month. The day after that, Leadership SCUC will continue again, and this time we will talk about curriculum. We will talk about assessment, both the STAR exam and the measures of academic progress, which we're going to hear just a little bit more about here in a few minutes, and the Texas accountability system and how the state of Texas has made accountability easy on an A through F system, and we'll find out just how easy it is when Ms. Kovacs and Mrs. Georges-Penny give that presentation to our Leadership SCUC group coming up on the 2nd. This time of year, in odd number years, we are working to prepare for the 88th Texas Legislature. And they did gavel in, as I said earlier in the meeting last week. Today, I believe, is the inauguration of the governor and his swearing in and the swearing in of the lieutenant governor. And so not much is happening as far as a legislative update right now because they just got there. The House elected Dave Phelan as the Speaker of the House, so committee assignments are being made, and we will really start ramping up into high gear probably in March. We'll start hearing from both the Speaker of the House and from the Lieutenant Governor what their priorities are going to be as far as bills are coming up this session. As I did make mention earlier when talking about the Board of Trustees, we will be traveling to Austin on February the 21st to meet with our elected representatives and talk about SCUC ISD's legislative priorities. So we look forward to those conversations that we have. And I'm pleased to report that we have four appointments already been set. Thank you, Ms. Jackson, for your work in making that happen. So that's what's going on with the legislature. Just a reminder, it's 140 days. And they close sine die, which means that's the last day of the legislature, will be May the 29th, barring any special called sessions, which we don't have, but in 2021 we had 3 of them. So we'll see how that goes. Finally, I'd just like to report and happy to be able to announce that our first ever SCUC Connect Community Edition has hit the newsstands, and by newsstands, I mean they're in your campus, they're out front, they're also in newsstands at our HEBs, and we're getting ready to get another HEB open up here next week. So if you haven't had a chance to get a nice glossy edition of that, we encourage you to do so. Thank you to Deanna Jackson and her team, and work on that by her team. I want to make special mention of Ed Suarez. Thank you for all the work that you did and all the writing that you did. Crystal Morales, who's in the back hiding, thank you for all of your work in graphic design. And a couple of community folks who made this possible as well. Daniel Tiller from Tiller Creative, who designed and laid out the magazine, and Vibe Media, who did the printing, did the distribution, and the digital version of that. So we do want to announce that a spring issue is planned for the end of school, probably about May of 2023. So with that, that's the end of my report, and we do have an update on MAP.
Okay, next. Thank you, Dr. Ely. Next, we have middle of year measures of academic process, MAP data. Serena Georges-Penny.
Good evening again. Before we get started, I'm going to mention that you have a blue folder in front of you. In that blue folder is the MAP data. You also have a copy of this presentation in there. And the MAP data for the district is 1 page, front and back. And then you have campuses, which is stapled as several pages, and each campus is on a page, okay? All right, so tonight we're going to give our update for House Bill 3 for our literacy and math growth progress for our middle of the year. Just as a reminder, House Bill 3 does require boards to approve literacy and math goals for 3rd grade. As a district, we do have goals for elementary, intermediate, and junior high as well. For our growth goals, we do utilize MAP data. We utilize MAP data because we can get a snapshot of student progress 3 times a year, which also includes our growth data. We can measure growth from August, which gives us our baseline data, to December, and then from December to April. We can also measure data from August to April. The only exception to this is our kindergarten students. Our kindergarten students are required to take the Texas KIA, in August, and that's the kindergarten entry assessment. And once they take that assessment, we transfer them over to MAP in December. So in December, we get the baseline for our kindergarten students, and then in April, their growth data. So as I present the data this evening, kindergarten will not be included in this data. We won't have them until end of year. So just an important reminder, for MAP growth, we utilize MAP growth because it does a couple of things. One, it gives us insight as to our student progress over time. It also helps us to just acknowledge that all students grow at different rates. And so MAP allows us to measure the student growth based on a match-period approach. They use this match-period approach to determine what each student's individual projected growth is going to be. For the match-period approach, what they take into consideration is the student's grade level, the test that they're taking, whether it be reading, math, science, or language, the weeks of instruction leading up to the assessment, and the RIT score the student obtains. They take this information, they get an average growth projection for each individual student, and then we just monitor that growth projection during the school year. Another quick reminder to remember is that typical growth for students is 50% of students meeting or exceeding their projected growth. This is based on norm data, and remember, MAP's data is normed nationally. In order to get our projections for our student growth data, we utilize 50% as a gauge, okay? When students do not meet their projected growth, it doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't grow. Student achievement across time increases every administration of the MAP test. So they may not meet their projected growth, but as long as their achievement score is increasing, they are demonstrating growth. So our growth measures are set at 60% for the end of the 23-24 school year. We did that because although typical growth is 50%, we wanted to skew that bell curve just a little bit so more of our students are meeting or exceeding their projected growth. And this is for our district goals and for our campus goals. Also, what we need to remember is that our goals increase over time. So this year's goals are higher than last year's goals, and next year's goal is going to be higher than this year's goal. So first up is our district growth data, and just as a quick reminder, this growth data just serves as a halftime update. We're only in the middle of the year, so this is pretty much a temperature check because this is our first glance at our growth data. So this is just going to gauge for us how our students are doing instructionally. We also are going to notice when you're looking at the data that there's going to be 3 colors represented. There's going to be green, yellow, and orange. Green simply means that we're meeting or exceeding our goals. Yellow means that we're within 10. Orange means that we're 11 or more percentage points away. So starting with our literacy goals for the district, you'll see that this is laid out in the first column is the grade level and the grade bands. So we have 3rd grade literacy, elementary literacy for 1st through 4th grade. Remember, kinder is not going to be in there. Then we have intermediate literacy for 5th and 6th, and then junior high for 7th and 8th. Then each column represents our goals. I talk with my hands and I'm hitting the microphone. Each column represents our goals. So we have 21, 22, those were last year's goals. 22, 23 is this year's goals, of course, and then 23, 24 landing at the 60%. The MOY is where we actually landed when our students took the district MAP assessment in December. So for 3rd grade literacy, we have 46.12% is where we landed. Elementary literacy was 44.93. Intermediate is 46.25. And then junior high is 49.78. One thing that is important to note as we look at these results is that when we make comparisons from this year to last year, we see that we're on an upward trend as far as the number of students who are meeting their projected growth. So for example, for 3rd grade literacy, last year we landed at 41.66%. So we grew in percentage points as far as the number of students who met their projected growth from last year to this year.
When you say landed, you mean mid-year?
Mid-year, yes, same time. So same time frame last year. For elementary literacy, we were at 39.38. Intermediate literacy is the only area where we saw a little bit of a dip there. Last year, we were at 52.61, and then junior high literacy, we maintained. For math, we'll see that our goals for third grade math, we're at 57.44. Elementary math is 48.82. Intermediate, 51.41, and then junior high is 43.49. When we take a look at last year, where we were at this time, third grade math was at 50.39, so significant growth there. Elementary math was at 42.35. Intermediate math was at 43.87, and then junior high was at 41.11. Next, we're going to move on to our yes?
Excuse me.
Yes.
When I see the percentage, let's say it's 54%. 54% of what?
54% of our students met or exceeded their projected growth in MAP.
Okay, so each of them have their own individual,
Each of them have their
Target
own
goal.
individual RIT score and then their own individual projected growth.
okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Next, we're going to take a look at our campus growth goals. And so here, we're going to start with elementary literacy, and you see all of our campuses are listed at the top, with third grade literacy and elementary literacy being the rows. Same thing with our district goals. For our campuses, we do see that more of our students are meeting or exceeding their projected growth. So even though there's some yellow and orange on that screen, our goals have gone up for this year, and so has our projected growth, the number of students who have met or exceeded their projected growth. I'm not going to go over individually what our campus MOI was this year versus last year was, because you have that in front of you, and we would be here until 11. Then we have elementary math. We have a little bit more green there. What's interesting is that we're seeing higher growth percentages in math, and we think it's because of a couple of things. One is the training that we've been providing our elementary teachers over the last few years, and then with COVID, we've been hyper-focused on math. The time during COVID, our kiddos have really had a significant dip in math because of COVID, and so we've really been focused on closing in those gaps for math, especially since math is built on each other. Then we have intermediate and junior high literacy. Same thing here, we're seeing where most of our grade levels and our campuses are either meeting and exceeding their goals from last school year. So finally, what are our next steps? Of course, there's going to be continued focus on our Tier 1 instruction, making sure, we're implementing our learning targets, our small group instruction, our campus PLCs are creating those common formative assessments, looking at the MAP instructional areas and making adjustments in pacing as needed. Multi-tier systems of support just simply means providing those interventions on an individual skill basis so that we can close those gaps for our students and build that foundation. Accelerated instruction is still required by House Bill 4545. You'll remember that 4545 requires that our students receive 30 hours of accelerated instruction for every STAR assessment where they don't meet expectations. And then elementary campus coaching, that's new this year. We've actually partnered with Ed Connective in order to provide instructional coaching that's virtual for our elementary principals, assistant principals, and teachers. What we heard at the start of this school year is that our elementaries really wanted support in providing coaching for our teachers and for their staff, and so we felt like this would be a good answer for that. And with that, I'll take any questions. Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I recall that there's a mechanism by which a teacher can go to this resource to find out, okay, they've scored X, Y, or Z, and then they get the TEKS or a system of instruction to help that person move ahead.
Yes.
Are the teachers finding that to be usable and effective?
I think as we continue to implement MAP, we're learning more and more about it, and our teachers and our campuses are too. We're still working with teachers on reading that learning continuum, which could be very overwhelming, and utilizing those instructional areas. And so many of our coordinators have gone out to help assist our teachers and our campuses with that. We still utilize an MOI protocol too that helps teachers to just dissect that data and make a plan using that data as well. So yes.
So just an observation. You had mentioned, and we have the sheets up here, and you didn't put them up, the comparisons, because I did look at last year. And if you look at the middle of year for last year's scores and the end, there's significant jumps. Yeah, and I think it's good to point out, because a lot of teachers will tell you that the kids do have a lot of growth in the spring, a lot.
Yes.
I don't know what happens. It's like all the light bulbs come on, and then they get it. And so if you're just looking at those scores, you might go, ooh, but if you look at them from last year and you compare it to the growth that they had by the end of the year, they're sometimes 20 points.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we typically see a tremendous growth in the spring semester. You know, by that time, we really know our students. We've settled in students. We know them to the point where we're utilizing that map data, and then we're utilizing some other assessments to make some decisions. And so by the time we get to the spring, we're really pinpointing our instructional needs and pulling kids into small groups and addressing that. So, yeah.
So we're also noticing, too, that our middle of the year this year is higher than last year's.
Yes,
Okay.
which indicates that we're getting much better about using our data, right, and pinpointing instruction so that it's meeting the individual needs of students.
Okay, thank you.
What does this?
I was waiting. I was like, I know he's going to ask a question. Come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. So what does this data not tell us?
Good question. What does it not tell us? Let me think about that. I don't want to just
Okay, fair enough. So,
run off with an answer there.
no, I get it. What is your, as noted, we've seen improvement from last year's, right? Last year's mid-year, but that's what it's supposed to do, right? Because that's what you said. You were like, every year, whatever it is this year, it's supposed to be higher next year.
Right, exactly. So what we want to see is that we're getting better each year about meeting the needs of students, which is why our growth goals increase over time. Yes, absolutely.
All right. What has changed? I know you said there's training, and you said there's focus. Is that an overly simplistic answer, or
It
what
could
do we?
be overly simplistic. Yes, training does play a role. Understanding MAP also plays a role, right? Understanding how to utilize these reports to the depth that they provide us also plays a role. I think the hard work of our teachers and our campuses, that plays a significant role in them understanding how to utilize the reports and then meet the needs of students. What else? Let me think. I think our campuses and our teachers are just getting really good at being able to utilize this data and other things as well in order to meet the needs of students, right? We've recognized that, you know, doing things in whole group and just teaching kids at, you know, whole group is probably not the most effective way. So many of our campuses have adopted small group instruction. They're meeting with kids one-on-one. Then you also have House Bill 4545. There's so many different things that play a role in a student being able to meet their projected growth. So it's very hard to pinpoint one specific thing because there's so many different things, from training to the teaching that's happening in the classroom, to the small group instruction, to making sure students understand their goals, to student goal setting. There's so many different things that are happening. You can't contribute it to just one specific thing.
Good deal. One other question, the gifted and talented, do you disaggregate the data, gifted and talented versus sort of the, I don't know how to term some of the people that aren't performing as well, and so are they growing more or less, you know, in terms of percentage?
That's a good question, too. So this year for our gifted and talented program, one of the things we do look at is data. And so on our campuses, on our elementary campuses specifically, we've implemented a new type of gifted and talented program where there are gifted and talented teachers that pull our GT students, and they have specific projects that they're working on with the students. The ultimate goal is that it's a continuum, so they're working on the projects all year long, and then they'll have an opportunity to present the projects at the end of the year. But we do use this data to help our GT teachers in understanding what are the deficits of our GT kiddos as well. So if they have some holes in their learning as well, we also make sure that they receive the small group instruction or the individual instruction that they need.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Unless you want me to ask more questions.
No.
Thank you very much. Good job, thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
I was just wondering if you have any feedback from the teachers and parents and the student together, maybe at conferences with students, or, I mean, anecdotal data, but,
Regarding the map data itself?
yes, and the use of the program.
I can't say that I have specific feedback that is specific feedback. What we hear is through the grapevine. So what's neat to know is that even in our parent survey, we saw where parents mentioned the map data. Teachers are mentioning the map data. When we go out to campuses, we're going to grade levels who already have their protocols already completed, and they know what their next steps are. So we just have that anecdotal data as far as how our parents and our teachers and our students are receiving their map data. Even having conversations with students as far as how they're progressing. Some students can tell you, okay, this is my RIT score and this is where I need to be.
Great.
So it's just that anecdotal data. We don't have formal data that's giving us that kind of feedback.
Okay, thanks.
I was just going to ask one question. As I'm perusing through this, looks like our intermediate literacy is a little bit behind from where I've noticed in the past, as far as mid-year. I mean, the African American is up, but the overall is down, and Hispanic and white are down. I know intermediate literacy is one of those really tough years, couple of years. Has that been noted, that they're seem to be lagging behind from last year? And
The district one?
right.
Yes, that has been noted, the intermediate literacy, and believe the campuses have noted that too. We actually went out to a few campuses and to just touch base and see how they're doing, and they already have a plan of action for the spring semester. So they've noted it also, that there's a dip, and they've gone through every single student to look to see, okay, where is the weaknesses here, and how can we now address the weaknesses?
Yeah, I know the fifth and sixth grade years are tough years, so I just know that because those are the kids that are now coming in that went through COVID in second, third, and fourth grade.
Exactly.
And that's now showing up, and I know that's a group that's going to have difficulties going forward. So the sooner we get them back on grade level and progressing, the better off they're going to be. So very good. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And again, I want to make sure I'm understanding the data correctly. So let's just say the percentage that we see there is 50%. Now, that means that 50% of the classroom, now the teacher has to not only make their regular lesson plans, but they need to make special lesson plans for 50% of the classroom. Am I right about that?
So not necessarily. So 50% is average growth. So when we see 50% of our students have met or exceeded their growth, that's average growth. What you're not seeing, and this goes back to your question about what we're not seeing, is the students that did make growth, but they didn't meet their projected growth. So there are more students that have actually grown throughout the first semester. You just don't see that information there because we go strictly off met projected growth.
Well, I'm speaking.
So it may not
I'm sorry.
necessarily be 50% of the students that they're having to now make
No, I was just using that,
interventions
I was just using that as an illustration. Like, I look down here and I see third grade literacy, 46.12%. That means 46% of them met their growth target,
Correct, yes.
right? Well, that means that 54% didn't. So that's approximately half the class.
Right, which is.
And so does that mean then I'm thinking about the teacher workload here, is what I'm really asking about.
Yeah.
So if they're having to make specialized instructional plans for 50% of the class each week, then that's on top of their regular lesson plan chores, shall we say. So how are they feeling about that?
Good question.
Can you
So-
explain how small group instruction works and how
Yes,
we pull those
exactly.
kids based on standard based?
Right,
Okay.
so when we are looking at that data, we're going to look at skill by skill. So thankfully, MAP gives us that information. It tells us which specific skills the students need remediation or intervention on. it actually groups the students for us too. So it'll take the instructional areas and it'll say all the students that need mathematics computation, for example, you can group these students together because they are at or around the same RIT score and they need about the same things. So, and not only does it do that, but then it breaks it down by TEAC. So then you can go into the learning continuum and it actually identifies for you by TEAC what those skills are. Because it's going to give you an umbrella, math computation, and then it's going to say by TEAC, this is what the kiddos need. So you can group those students pretty easily by what they need by each of the individual skills. So they don't have to go through and say, okay, this kid needs this and this kid needs this. The map report is automatically going to do that for them.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense to me.
One follow-up question. So,
Wait, hold on.
oh,
You said you weren't going to ask anyone.
yeah, I know, but, yeah.
Go ahead.
I do not have a politically correct answer to that one, so I won't say anything. But comparative progress, right? We know when I was in high school, I used to train all summer, thought I was getting fast, until I ran up against people who were training harder than me during the summer. How do we actually know? I mean, we're seeing trending progress. That's clear. But how do we know how good we actually are? Is there any comparative data or data compared to other districts, right?
Yes.
So if you bring if we're 56%, right, but other districts demographically wise are at 58 or 60, then we're good, but we're not.
Good question. So MAP does have on their website, they do have where you can access other Texas districts. You can't see districts specifically, but what you can see is this is where SCUC is in comparison to all Texas districts. So we can pull that data to see, okay, where are we falling as far as student growth in comparison to all districts in the state of Texas that utilize MAP. They do have that available. So we can look at that.
Thank you, I
Maybe
appreciate
put
it.
it in a transmittal for you.
That'll be great. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Serena. We look forward to more green at the end of year presentation and hearing about the growth that we've achieved. Before we go any farther, I want to clear both of our students. You guys are welcome to stay, and this is why we learn mathematics and means and averages and all those things. Or you can go do homework or whatever else you have to do.
Thank y'all so much.
Yes.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, guys. All right, next we have correspondence.
We have none.
No correspondence, thank you. And next we have a report on board advocacy. And I'm going to start with Robert because he's been talking the most.
I would like to just sort of say that I went to Pascal Elementary and I learned about, so after going to schools, I do realize I gain a new appreciation for the teachers. They're at the grassroots level, putting in the time, implementing and manifesting some of the stuff that we come up here on the board. When, we come up with this strategic vision, but they're at the operational level actually making it happen. And so there's a newfound appreciation or renewed appreciation for that one. And so once I went to Pascal, I relearned, I don't want to say learned about dot plots, and how to graph and all of the other stuff. And so seeing an engaged student, it just sort of reinforces that we're doing a good job. So thank you to the superintendent and his staff and the administration and the principals for doing a good job. Thank you.
I attended the fall graduation and several Rotary meetings and several Chamber of Commerce meetings.
The city of Schertz-Cibolo had a runoff election, and today they did their swearing in. Schertz did theirs at 5, and so I ran over there real quick and attended Ralph Gutierrez swearing in. Cibolo had theirs at 6:30, so couldn't make that one because here we are. But just wanted to say congratulations to them and thank the former mayor, Stosh Boyle, for his service to Cibolo.
No, I don't have anything to add at this time. Thank you.
Well, that was quick. As Mr. Westbrook, I went to Pasco Elementary, and Principal Allison Miller showed us around, I don't know, it seemed like every classroom. But they were very engaged. The students were very engaged, and volunteers were there to help, and it was just wonderful. And then the Northeast Partnership meeting reminds us of the importance of all government entities working together, because everybody needs educated students. So we're hoping they can get in there and help us some more. And in the Schertz Chamber, that was the state of the city of Schertz today at the chamber. It was great. And then later this month, I'm going to go to Rose Garden, Weiderstein, and Cibolo Valley.
For the sake of time, I'll pass.
I got the opportunity to go to Rotary Club International, a couple meetings, and there's good discussion there. Tri-County Chamber luncheon. Again, more good discussion. Northeast Partnership is another great opportunity to interact with not just in our district, but in our area. Obviously, Northeast Partnership is the city mayors and managers of the 13 or 14 cities in the northeast part of San Antonio. Communities and Schools had a board meeting this morning, and then we had a chamber luncheon today. That's all I have. We're going to take this opportunity to move one of our items up so that our auditor doesn't have to stay until the wee hours of the morning. Not that we're all going to stay that long. So I'm going to let Dr. Ely introduce.
Can you go ahead and introduce it there? Request for board action?
Yes. So we have request for board approval, annual financial audit report for the year ending August 31st, 2022, presented by Brian Moy.
Before Brian speaks about that, I just want to say thank you to Mr. Moore, our Chief Financial Officer, and his department for their work, their stellar work to keep us where we need to be as far as the responsibility that we have for taxpayer dollars, and they do an excellent job. I'd like to make special note to Angie Muchigimba, who's here in the audience. She's our finance manager, and thank you for staying with us this evening and for all of your work on a day in and day out basis for this. And I would just like to go ahead and introduce Paula Lau from the accounting firm of Patillo, Brown & Hill, who has been our auditor and will present our findings to us this evening. And Mr. Moore, would you like to say anything else?
No, sir, you pretty much covered it.
Awesome.
There we go. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Paula Lau with Patillo, Brown & Hill, and I'm here this evening to present to you the results of the annual financial report for fiscal year 2022. On page 1 of the document, I think each of you do have a copy of the hard copy of the annual financial report in front of you. On page 1 of this document, actually starts on page 2, you will find the independent auditor's report. Basically, what this report says is that we have audited the accompanying financial statements in accordance with government auditing standards as well as generally accepted auditing standards. And those were standards require that we plan and perform the audit to obtain a reasonable assurance that these financial statements are materially correct. And I'm happy to let you know that we were able to render an unmodified opinion, and an unmodified opinion is the highest opinion that can be rendered, and also is known as a clean opinion to most individuals as well. So congratulations for receiving those high remarks. Also, as a part of the audit of this particular entity's financial statements, whenever an entity does expend more than $750,000 of federal awards, it kicks off another audit, as we refer to as a single audit. Towards the very end of the report, you will see that particular section of our results there. We have issued 2 other reports within this section, and it begins on page 77, I do believe. Yes. You'll find our report in accordance with government auditing standards, and as well as the uniform guidance. And the uniform guidance is the information that kicks off the single audit whenever that were referred to earlier. The government auditing standards require us to consider the controls and processes of the entity. And if we feel like those controls and processes would not detect a material misstatement to the financial statements, we are required to report that information to you within that particular letter. I'm happy to let you know we do not have any findings to bring to your attention this evening as well. As in accordance with uniform guidance, we looked at 2 different programs this year for that, and that was included the special education funding as well as the ESSER funding. And I say looked at, what we had to do as a part of, there are certain compliance requirements that the federal guidelines wants us to look at and make sure that the district did adhere to those. Some of those compliance requirements includes what the money was spent on and are those allowable costs under these 2 different programs. And I'm happy to let you know that we were able to give a clean opinion on those compliance requirements as well. So congratulations for receiving great results on the audit this year. On page 84 of this document, the very last page is actually one of the best pages and is a summary. It does say that we were able to give an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, no findings to bring to your attention, and the compliance for federal awards, there was a clean opinion as well. So congratulations. We, as a part of our audit process, each of you probably aware that we, as auditors, we always ask a lot of questions, not even to the group within the finance department, but also to just people that are overseeing these federal awards and these programs as well. We come in, unfortunately, and they're very nice about it. We try to be nice as possible as well. We disrupt their daily routine. So I'd like to just thank them for being kind and courteous to us as a part of that process and providing us all the information that we needed to be able to give you a clean report this evening as well. And your finance team, they do a great job, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to work with them as well. One highlight that I wanted to point out to you within the financial statements is just looking at fund balance of the general fund as well. I know as you always go through the budget process, that's something that each of you do look at. On page 14 of the hard copy of the document there, you can see a column specifically for the general fund. You can see at the end of the year, total fund balance was about $63 million, and unassigned portion of that fund balance was almost $48 million. A lot of times, groups always compare that unassigned fund balance to what total expenditures are for that particular fiscal year. And total expenditures for the general fund for the year that we're looking at this year on page 17 was almost $134 million. And so unassigned fund balance is a little bit more than 4 months of your general fund expenditures, which is in a good position, definitely. So, but that's just a brief summary of all of this great information that your finance team works very hard to have available to you this evening and throughout the year as well, because you not only get reports about financial information, but one time a year, but on a monthly basis as well. So, and I'm based on us looking at controls and processes throughout the year, I think the information that we're providing to you this evening is very consistent with what you're getting throughout the year as well. So that's great to help you to be able to make great informed decisions as you are sitting on the board. But again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to work with a great group. And if you have any questions about the information, definitely I'm available.
Does anybody have any questions now? Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Paula.
We appreciate your effort.
Wait. This is a motion. We need approval for this.
I move the Board of Trustees approve the annual financial audit report for the year ending August 31st, 2022.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. Thanks again. Next, we're going to move another one up, so we have another guest who's with us. The presentation, discussion memorandum of understanding for Texas Child Health access through telemedicine. Looks like T-Chat, and your Youth Aware of Mental Health, YAM. Dr. Ely.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Ms. Kovacs is going to talk to us a little bit about T-Chat. A number of you heard about that during your numerous board training opportunities that you had earlier in the year. You heard about T-Chat at the annual conference in San Antonio. It was great news that now they have the capability to add SCUC ISD in. This is actually 2 agenda items tonight. We have a discussion item, and we'll be seeking your action on a memorandum of understanding to work with UT Health. So with that, more information on that is Kelly Kovacs. Ms. Kovacs.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Yes, we're happy to have Misty Phelps here to help us with any questions that you may have. I'm just, I only know this much, so I'm going to give you an overview, and then Misty, who's the Senior Project Manager of T-Chat Outreach and Expansion, as well as Cassandra Gracia, who you all know, will help me with questions. So T-Chat is Texas Child Health access through telemedicine. It is provided by UT Health San Antonio. It was part of the 86th legislative session that funds were provided to allow districts from across the state to participate in this child mental health care consortium. You can see up there T-Chat, and among other things, as part of this initiative. And really the idea of T-Chat is that they're trying to give students access to telemedicine for mental health and counseling. We all know that's a big area of need across the state and really across the nation. And so we're happy to be able to consider joining T-Chat. What's really awesome about this experience is that once a student has been referred by their counselor and approval has been gotten from their parents, along with all the paperwork, those referrals are reviewed within 72 hours. So students aren't waiting weeks and weeks to get in to see a counselor, as sometimes is the case through T-Chat. T-Chat is all across the state. You can see there where we are in that yellow section of this map. But really districts from across the state have been a part of this for a couple of years already. UT Health San Antonio is the entity that covers our area, including 35 counties of Texas. And all of these school districts, 56 districts, have already partnered as part of this work. You'll see a number of those right in our area, high areas of density, including San Antonio, ISD, Alamo Heights. And we're bringing to you tonight the opportunity for us to be on that list as well. Some other great things to know about T-Chat: it is free for students and their family members, and they can provide everything from psychotherapy and counseling to even medications if approved by the parent. These are for any age, any financial background, so you don't have to qualify in any way. The only qualification is you need to be a student at SCUC as part of this MOU. What they're able to provide with T-Chat is really short-term treatment. This is with parent consent, 5 to 10 sessions of psychiatry and other therapy. Those can be during the school day if it meets the student's schedule, or it can be after school. Students under 8 years old do not have on-campus televisits unless the parent is on site as well. And then one of the better aspects of this, again, we know it's hard to get in to see a counselor, is that UT Health will actually provide the transfer of patient care to another counselor in the community, including setting up that first appointment for them, which is very difficult sometimes to get. So it's a short-term treatment, and then they try to hand it off to somebody else who can help the student if they need more treatment. You can see here a wide range of conditions that they're able to help with. And you'll also see that there are some things that they don't provide, such as emergency services. This, again, it could be up to 3 days before they're seen, and that's once we have the consent of the parent, which sometimes takes a little time to get all that paperwork back. So there are some things that are wonderful about this program, and really they're there on the left. Those are things that we see on a daily basis with our students, and so being able to provide some teletherapy for them in a very quick fashion is something that we're interested in. Something else that's a part of this is something called parent-child interaction therapy. This is for our youngest learners, our pre-K through about first grade. Students who are struggling with things like hyperactivity or oppositional defiance. These are sessions with the parent. In the past, these have been on-site at UT Health. They're now working on Zoom versions of this, but it's the idea that parents are given some support in how to help their child when they're in they're having these types of symptoms, and helping them with things like how to effectively communicate and effectively discipline with their student. So that's an option as well. The second part of the MOU is for something called Youth Aware of Mental Health. This is a mental health curriculum that we would be, even if we sign the MOU, we're not required to provide this, but it is an opportunity for our students to learn things like resiliency and collaboration, and how to get along with others as part of a mental health program. It is a TEA approved program. It aligns with the health TEKS, and it's been utilized in the North Texas area for quite some time. It's really designed for ages 14 to 16, which is 8th grade through 11th grade. As you all know, our SHAC has been really involved in looking into supports for students and mental health. And so if we signed this MOU, it would just give them the opportunity to review this one as a possibility for our students if it's something that meets our needs. The YAM curriculum is actually facilitated by folks who are certified in that program, and so UT Health would actually come on site to provide those opportunities for our students to learn if we decided to go with that route. So that's kind of the quick version, and thankfully Misty and Cassandra are here to help answer any questions that you all may have. I know it's a lot of information in a very short amount of time. But the idea is to get our students some support, which is also why we wanted to have an action item today, so that we don't have to delay in getting our students some additional counseling if needed. Happy to answer questions.
Is there any data on the effectiveness of TCHAT or YAM?
There is. Misty, you probably can answer that better than I can, but she does have some data.
Yes, as far as there is some local data that shows how many kids have been served. I didn't bring that along, but we could provide y'all with that. It's basically just shown that we've been able to provide that quick bridge to kids to where they got connected to a permanent provider. And then as far as YAM, there is extensive studies on that. That has been conducted with over 12,000 students in Europe, with a sampling of different techniques applied, and it did show that that it really has a strong impact on depressive symptoms and suicidal ideation.
Thank you. That's very needed right now.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Well, since you'll be asking us to take some action, I have to ask, because I've heard in other places where students receive counseling on areas and their parents are not informed of that. And so, as I understand what you told us, is that the parents always have to approve any of the counseling, and nothing gets hidden from the parents at all. Am I correct?
So the counseling services originate from the school counselor recommending the student for services, and then the parent has to fill out an extensive packet, really,
Correct. Yeah,
of information
so there
before
has
any
to be-
services are provided.
I'm sorry, there has to be a release of information. There needs to be a release of information signed from the district first. The counselor does the referral into TCHAT, and then we handle the packet as if they were going to the doctor alongside the parent. So the parent is in full partnership with this whole thing. The counselor just initiates the process, and then the parent has to fill out all the history and everything, so they're fully aware of all the pieces that go into that.
Okay, thank you.
So with the counselors giving the referral, is there also an option, say a parent is like, my child needs help in XYZ, can they reach out to their counselor and then also get put into the system that way, or does it have to be the counselor initiating it?
Yeah, so the law was written for the counselor to initiate it, but we also are really trying to increase the partnership between parents and counselors. So we are encouraging parents that if they know that T-Chat could be a good service for their child, to go and say to the counselor, like, I'm looking for some help, and then the counselor could just initiate that in partnership with the parent.
Is there, in all the data you gather, well, all the resources we have, whether it's T-Chat or all the other options do we have, is there ever an opportunity to sort of review all the data and sort of identify some commonality for building resilience and or what is causing some of the problems that our students have, right? So you look at all the data, you say, man, I can see, I don't want to mention anything because you never know what it is, but you know what I'm saying, to try to stop it at the cause versus dealing with it on the back end.
Yeah, I think, there's obviously clinical data that we're able to collect, and part of that Texas Mental Health Care Consortium is that there are studies going on at UT Health in regards to like depressive symptoms and trauma that extend, this project as well. So there's definitely like some data sources. I'm not sure. I think we kind of can see the trends of what's happening with some of the kids through some of the types of referrals. We were able to use some of our ARPA funds to expand T-Chat services, and so we opened 3 separate clinics that y'all would have access to, and they're virtual clinics as well, or offering in person. But if there's kids that are specifically dealing with trauma or grief, they could be moved into that clinic if necessary. There's also one around anxiety or school refusal. So we see a lot of kids that, they're coming to school, but they're leaving, or they're in the nurse's office all day. So we have some specialized providers working on that project, because these are some patterns we see coming up. And then the last thing is, and I think I heard y'all mention it, is that we're seeing a lot of substance use. So we're creating a substance use concern clinic to intervene early on substance use disorders and to do it wraparound with the families involved. So they're looking at early drug, alcohol, even things like vaping, and really trying to dial in with the family immediately on that. And so we're going to be recruiting people to that are already part of T-Chat as well. So those are just some expansion services from the basic bridge of getting kids care out in the community. So I hope that helps, but definitely those were created based off of the trends that we saw in the data. And we, if we needed to provide more data, I could prepare ahead of time, we can definitely do that for y'all, so you can kind of see.
No, I do appreciate it. I'm getting enough information from SGP, so, but thank you.
Thank you.
The funding for this, does it come from, do you work with the student's insurance, or is that funding that comes from Texas?
Yes, so it's coming through the state of Texas, through the Texas Child Mental Health Care Consortium. Some of the funding that we had for the specialized clinics were coming through our ARPA funding, but since that is kind of changing, they actually have funneled some of that money back into the funds through Texas Child Mental Health Care Consortium. So, obviously we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but what we're hearing is that this program has spread throughout the state. They are having high success with it, and so we're hearing that it may be pretty much here to stay, and they're hoping that schools will really think about utilizing it.
Well, I think that was another component of what I was also hearing is that y'all have been in the school districts for a couple of years now.
Yes.
And you actually have quite a few of them that you service.
We do.
Okay.
And, one thing that we have to think about is scaling to make sure that we, can build our clinical capacity at the same rate. So that's something we'll think about as we add you guys on. But definitely we've been staying within our 72 hours, and we are adding a lot of districts. My department was added in October because we really are trying to make sure that everybody has that opportunity to join on if you'd like.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. President, I'd just like to say a couple things. Well, first of all, Misty, thank you so much for being here, and thank you to the board for us having not only a discussion, but action on this tonight. Being able to take action on this in just a little bit will allow our kids to have access to this even quicker. I did just want to point out or reiterate that, we have a number of things that are in place right now to meet the mental health needs of our kids. Not only do we have our school counselors, of which we were able to add additional ones at the high school level this year, but we have 3 mental health counselors that work exclusively with those kids and families who are in crisis. And we also have agreements with UT San Antonio, who've got their interns who are here working with our kids as well under the supervision of our licensed professional counselors here. So this is an opportunity for us to add an additional opportunity for our kids and for our families. And I just want to kind of hit that. I think it was Mr. Swart who brought this up initially at the beginning, and just remind everybody, this is not us assigning kids to outside counseling. This is kiddos who are having a need and us initiating that process. That process is really in between the parent and the provider. That's being provided by TCHAT. And to the extent that we can offer them opportunities to be able to, if it works during the school day, that's great. If it works in the afternoons, if it works in the evenings for their telehealth visits, whatever works best for that child and for their schedule. And I just want to point a clarification. You mentioned that for students who are 8 years old or younger, that they cannot be doing these telehealth appointments without a parent present. If I had a 10-year-old child and I wanted to be present, we will do that same thing as well at home, correct? So it's any parent who wants to be there while this therapy is going on, they'll have the ability to do that. Is that correct, Misty?
Yes, and I want to clarify, for appointments, parents do have to make an appearance on the Zoom call one way or the other because it is a medical appointment. And so they show up even if they're just there, if it's a therapy appointment for a few minutes, they check in with the counselor and then they can exit. But for the 8-year-olds and younger, they have a hard time attending on those telehealth visits, so we ask the parent to stay longer for those visits. And then one thing I want to add that I know schools have a lot of great additional programs that they can use, and we're trying to work with everybody in a very complementary way so that if you already have some resources that we can, work together around that. Something to remember for us is that because a lot of the community programs really offer psychotherapy and counseling. If a child is in need of medication management, we're really uniquely positioned where a lot of other agencies aren't to help with that medication management. Because the psychiatry visit usually does take months to get that appointment. So that's one thing we've been saying is like if you've got counselors on staff that can do it and they're in place. We're not wanting to pull from anything that already exists. We just want to be a bridge for when something doesn't exist. Okay?
I was just thinking about the funding for TCHAT, how we get extra educational funds and then all of a sudden it goes away. Is there a possibility of that?
Of course, as that was a question I had when I took the job. I was like,
Yeah.
But from what we're seeing, the data trending is that so many districts are signing on. It's really becoming fully utilized. And what we're hearing from them is that they're continuing the funding. They've continued to add to it year over year. So at this point, I think it would be real tough for them to just wipe it out. But who knows, right?
So calls start tomorrow morning if we approve it tonight?
So with you guys, because y'all are a slightly bigger district than you saw our catchment area. I get Divide and Lakey who have 16 kids. It's pretty easy for us to pick them up. But with you guys, we want to make sure that we can provide the level of service and get that 72-hour promise fulfilled. So what we'll do is if y'all sign the MOU, I'll take that back to my supervisors and we'll look at a feasible start date because we're going to ramp up our clinical staffing just for SCUC to make sure that we can meet that need. And I don't, I think the longest estimate they've given me is next school year, but our goal is to get people started. So what we would do is just stay in really close contact about how we're doing, because just like educators, we're also struggling with staffing. There's a critical mental health provider shortage out there as well, so part of the work that we're doing is also training more providers to go into the community. So hopefully we can get you guys onboarded quickly and be able to support y'all, because I know the need is there. We see it with all of our other districts.
We believe in you.
Thank you.
You can do it.
I want to try. Thank you.
Much. Okay, now we're back on new business, discussion items, public hearing, 2021-2022 Texas Academic Performance Report TAPR. Kelly Kovacs.
It's the moment you've all been waiting for. This is the 21-22 Texas Academic Performance Report. As you know, the TAPR report has a lot of information in it. I'm not going to give you every line of it. It's way too much to try to take in at one time. But there's a link to the full TAPR report that you'll be able to access, and all of this information will be online along with more. What is in the TAPR report is STAR performance information, attendance, dropout, and graduation information, college readiness, career readiness, military readiness, all of those informational pieces are in there. The district profile, including student and staff and program information. So we're going to go over a little bit of all of that, none of it in great detail, but we'll go over a little bit of all of it and try to hit some high points for you. 10 days from now, we are required by law to post the full TAPR report along with some additional information known as the district annual report. That includes the information you see here, some of which has been provided to you earlier this school year already, such as the PEIMS financial standard reports, and other information that is included in the TAPR and beyond. So all of this information will be online. We will also be posting a QR code to all of this information at every campus and in our district offices as part of the requirements of the federal government. That's required because we accept ESSA funds, for those of you who are interested. STAR performance, we did present the full STAR performance information back in July at the board workshop, so we won't go over that in great detail again, but just as a reminder of the idea of all subjects, all grades, how did we do on STAR? You can see that SCUC in that orange persimmon color did very well and exceeded the region and state averages in all 3 areas: approaches, meets, and masters. That orange persimmon color I just pointed out to you, that's going to be SCUC all the way through this presentation. So if you see that color, that's for the district. Also in the TAPR report, as I mentioned, there's attendance, absentee, and dropout information. You can remember back to 2021 where attendance was kind of loosey-goosey. We could get attendance in a lot of different ways because of COVID. And so ours and the region and the state's attendance was very high. Chronic absenteeism was low. This is good because chronic absenteeism means that a student was enrolled for at least 10 days in the district, but then was absent 10% or more of the days of the year. So 10.5% lower than the region and the state, so we're happy about that. Also the dropout rate, that was that annual 2021 dropout rate for our high school at 1.1%, again below the region and state. Talk a little bit about post-secondary readiness. The TAPR report is mostly about the 21-22 school year, but all the information I'm about to share with you is the class of 2021. So these were students who graduated 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago now. Back in that year, we had just over 1,300 graduates, and 97.5 of them graduated in 4 years. That means they started together as freshmen in the 2017-2018 school year, and they graduated 4 years later, 97.5. You'll see the state average there is 90%, so well exceeded that. And then college, career, and military readiness, 58.8% of our students in the class of 2021 met CCMR. You can see the state average there. We're going to talk about this in a little more detail on the next slide. So this is several pages of the full TAPR report. There's so many ways, as you know, to gain college, career, and military readiness. I'm just going to highlight a few. The first one there is dual credit. This is students who earned at least 3 hours in dual credit English or math, or they earned 9 hours or more in any dual credit class. So 24.9% of our 2021 graduates earned that. On-ramps, course credits, these are students who are enrolled concurrently in their high school course as well as in UT Austin on-ramps. 10.8% of our students completed that and got 3 or more hours worth of credit. AP and IB, that, to meet that criteria, you have to get a 3 or better on an AP exam or a 4 or higher on an IB exam. And 19.3% of our students back, again, these were graduates 2021, were able to accomplish that. And industry-based certifications, these are the IBCs from the state list only, we're at 16.2%. We also love to look at SAT results. As you all know, we give the SAT to all of our students at the high school level, really their junior year. I say all, it's not really all, because there are, for some students who are in special education services, it's not appropriate for them to take the SAT. So, but 88.8% of our students back then did take the SAT. You'll see that's much higher than the region and state, and with that, our students performed really well as well. 38.9% met criteria. If you're wondering what the criteria is, you gotta have a 480 or better on reading and writing and a 530 or better on math, both. It's pretty tough. So 38.9% of our students were able to meet that criteria back then. Graduation plans, this is again, a lot of information on the taper report, several pages worth. We're just going to show you one graduation plan. That's the foundation high school plan with distinguished level of achievement. I'll see if I can not mess this up. These are students who had the highest possible graduation plan, meaning they finished their 4 years with the foundation plan and an endorsement, and they took 4 years of science, which is you're only required to have 3, and they took math all the way up to at least Algebra 2. This is the highest plan because it allows you to have the most flexibility. If you want to go to college, you really need to be on this plan. It's the one TEA recommends, and you can see that 90.2% of our students are at that highest graduation plan, which we're really proud of. We'll get into the student profile just briefly. We had 15,875 students back in fall 2021, and our population looked like this: 45.3% Hispanic, 33.3% white. African American was at 11.6%, and then you can see the 2 or more Pacific Islander, American Indian, and Asian. We also like to keep track of our students in special programs. We'll talk first about economically disadvantaged. These are students who qualify for free or reduced lunch. And you can see that state number is pretty high. 60.7% of our students in the state qualify. In SEUC back in 21-22, 32.5% of our students qualified for free or reduced lunch. Our 504 percentage there was 9.2%. Fun fact, by the end of that year, we were at 10.2% 504. Special education, again, at Snapshot, we were at 13.8%. By May of 2022, we were at 15.55% special ed. And if you looked at that number this past December, we were at 16.21% special education. Dyslexia, 6.8%, which that number, by the way, is growing, and part of our special education numbers are growing because of dyslexia. Due to some changes in guidance from the federal government, more of our dyslexia students are qualifying for special education, so that's part of the reason why that number is growing. And then the gifted and talented percentage there, 6.3% back a year ago. We'll look at our staff briefly, just a couple of key slides here. We like to look at how much experience our staff have, and you can see that I highlighted where the state had a higher percentage or the district had a higher percentage, and you can see pretty quickly most of our staff is pretty experienced. We do draw a staff that's got 11 to 30 years experience rather than the younger teachers, although I will say this is bound to change. We're having more turnover, and we will be hiring more early year experience, but in 21-22, that's what our numbers look like compared to the state. And then probably the most popular slide is how do we compare with those in our region. That orange, as I mentioned before, on the far left of each one of these years is SEUC. It's hard to see those numbers, but 21-22, 13% turnover. The only one there that's lower, that red, is Northside ISD at 12.9%. And you can kind of see how we compare. Just anecdotally, state was at 17.7% that year. There's the link to the full TAPER report for anybody interested. Again, we'll have all of this posted online really within the week. Araceli Trejo has been working really hard on getting that website up and ready with all the information, but happy to answer any questions if you have them.
So, out of all the data, so I went onto the website. It was a lot to read, the whole TAPER report, you're correct. So, but I saw a lot of information when it had outcome and performance data, you know, sort of what they learned, what the students learned. There was some demographic data, you know, who, race, gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, you know, who. But how does determine, how do I say it, process data, right? So how and why did the students learn what they learned? And it goes back to sort of what SGP was saying earlier. There was focus, you know, saying student support teams, a whole lot of, PLCs. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of correlation, but it seems correlation does not necessarily indicate causal relationships, right? And so you have to ask more questions because you have all these correlations like, man, all of this adds together. It seems to indicate it's making a difference, but how do you, I'm going to get to my question, I'm going to land it sooner or later, is how do you align all of this systemic alignment all the way from strategic planning to the hows and whys, people are learning, educational alignment, PLCs?
Sure. The closest thing that I can get to a easy answer is that every campus has a leadership team, and of course the district leadership team. As part of our work to make our improvement plans, we are digging deep into this data. Those teams are looking at all of the data, and really it's more than just what's in the TAPER report, right? So STAR is one, but then we have to layer on MAP, we have to layer on survey data, we have to layer on all of those pieces. There's never going to be like that's it, that's the one thing that made the difference. I think to do so would kind of negate a lot of the work that we do and a lot of the efforts that we put in, because I do think that it's more of a broad blanket approach of let's try many different things to try to address, because we don't want to just put all of our eggs in one basket, because then if it doesn't work, we can be like, well, that didn't work, but we didn't try all of the things that we could. So I don't know that there's looking at this data, I don't know that there's going to be an easy answer to why are we where we are. I think that there's a lot of information and a lot of data that goes into that.
Clearest and most
I know.
honest answer probably I've heard in my 11 years since being on the board, but I appreciate it.
Sure.
Can you go back to the CCMR slide?
Yes.
So when I look at this, I know we see comparisons to the region and to the state. And we have to remember that let's just take dual credit on-ramps and APIB.
Okay.
We take our students and split those between those groups. But yet we're comparing ourselves to like the region and the state, and they may not offer all three of those. So in all actuality, if we didn't offer, let's just say dual credit, those kids might opt to go to on-ramps or AP, and we would have see higher scores there.
Potentially, yes. I think in addition to that, these students who are graduating, we did not have an advanced academics coordinator who was specifically trying to target making sure that we had all of the things in place, that the teachers and students had all of the materials that they needed and the training that they needed. That was prior, and I do think that we'll start to see all of these numbers, including the industry-based certifications, going up over the next couple of years. But I do think part of the reason why this looks like it does, if you'll notice, on-ramps is much higher than the state. So we have a lot of students who are going into that. In fact, it's grown significantly since then. So we have fewer students going into some of those other programs.
Right, and I think ultimately what I'm getting at is I don't necessarily think this is a fair comparison. without knowing what other schools within Region 20 have all three of these. Do you see what I'm getting at?
Sure.
Yeah, that's the way I see it on those.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing, so we need to know if there are any public comments. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next one. Discussion, Chapter 21 and non-Chapter 21 personnel contracts presented by Linda Cannon.
Good evening, President Perkins, Dr. Ely, and members of the board. This is a discussion item only to remind you that each spring we bring contracts to the board for approval. We have professional staff who, those staff that have to hold a SPEC certification for their job assignment are eligible for the Chapter 21 contracts, and other professional staff that do not receive a non-Chapter 21 contract. Due to the number of contracts that we ask you to approve each year, we do split those up by month. So in February, we're going to bring the administrators and professional contracts to you for recommendation for approval. In March, we will bring term contracts, which include your teachers, librarians, and registered nurses. And then in April, we'll bring any staff members who are on a probationary contract. And so we do have to notify our staff members who are on contract either by giving them a new contract for the next year or notifying them otherwise before 10 days before the last day of instruction. So this timeline will help us be able to meet that deadline for us as well.
Any discussion? Thank you, Linda. Next, we have, where did it go? Consent, discussion, board consideration, consent on discussion items eligible for action under consent agenda.
With what we had on discussion, we had the public hearing just a second ago on the taper, and then we have action later on in this meeting on the T-chat. So the only thing that's eligible would be the February, March, and April when we're coming back for contracts, and we would suggest not putting that on consent.
Okay, sounds good. All right, next we're on to action items, and we start with consent items. Anybody have anything they want to pull off of the consent items from last month?
I move the Board of Trustees approve the consent agenda items A through E as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. Okay, now we're on to other action items. C2, consider and take possible action for resolution on the sale of district real property pursuant to local government code, chapter 272, and authorize the superintendent or his representative to enter into a real estate sale contract with the city of Schertz and authorize the president of the board of trustees to execute the deed and other documents necessary to effect the conveyance of the property. Dr. Ely.
You can tell we did not write that, a lawyer wrote that. So what we have before you this evening is the continuation of a discussion and seeking your approval to take a number of properties that we own in the Live Oak Hills subdivision and sell them to the city of Schertz. And with more information on that is Mr. Brian Moy, our CFO. Mr. Moy.
Thank you, Dr. Ely. This has been discussed in closed session a few months ago. It was brought as a discussion item last month. This is about 31 acres of property, 147 individual lots, not all contiguous. It is my understanding that when these were bought, it was an attempt to purchase more and more and more, and it never became a site that was completely suitable for us to put a school on it, and now the city has plans for it, a fire station, and even though they do not need 31 acres for a fire station, they understand that we wouldn't be so agreeable to just, parsing out 7, 8 acres of it. So they've actually agreed to buy up all 31 acres of our property in that area.
Mr. President, go ahead. Mr. President, I move the board adopt a resolution as presented, authorizing the superintendent to enter into a real estate sale contract in a form approved by legal counsel with the city of Schertz to represent the district in connection with the sale of the real property described in the agenda item, to authorize the President of the Board of Trustees to execute the deed and other documents necessary to effect the conveyance of the property, and that such executed resolution be amended to the approved minutes of this meeting as a formal record of this action.
I second.
We have a motion and a second now. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. All right, thank you, everyone. Next, we are on to C3, request for board approval, ratification for agreement for termination of restrictive covenants. Dr. Ely.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I guess it was last month, we had representatives from the community come and speak to us about the development they have near Schlother Intermediate School, and us being a property owner there, having to sign off on restrictive covenants, the cancellation of those so that they've would be able to move to closure on their vet clinic. We're certainly coming back this month and seeking you to approve the resolution for the action that took place. More information on that is Mr. Moy.
Yes, so after consulting both with our attorneys and with the city of Cibolo, we find that there is no harm to the district in agreeing to this termination, and seeing in order for the covenants to be terminated, the majority of the landowners that have the land of the original covenants were set on need to agree, and we are one of the majority owners in that area. So it was incumbent upon us to sign that, and then the attorney just suggested that for the just to get it into the minutes tonight, that we bring this to you as a ratification.
I move the Board of Trustees ratify and approve the termination of restrictive covenant as they pertain to the Van Horn property.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. Next, we're on to request for board approval, 2023-2024 school year calendar. Dr. Ely.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins, members of the board. As Dr. Edwards is making his way up to speak about this, we will be having, it looks like Mr. Reynolds will be passing out hard copies of this calendar if you would like to write on them or have any questions. So we do need to set an academic calendar for next school year. And so we've had a long process of this. That's been primarily done the research behind this and recommendation made by our District Improvement Committee. And with more, thank you, sir. With more information on that is Dr. Edwards.
Thank you, Dr. Ely, President Perkins, members of the board. The school calendar enables the district to establish days of instruction, operation, and contract days of employees, including any time required for staff development, planning and preparation, and continuing education, otherwise by law. SCUC ISD is designated as a district of innovation and has a statutory exemption to allow us to start before the fourth Monday in August. The following areas for the school calendar development were also included, but not limited to: consideration for building a school calendar with 180 days of instruction. This will allow us to be eligible for the additional day school year funds. Providing professional development and learning for staff, and honoring holidays that are important to our community. So the bottom line up front is the recommendation that the DIC is bringing to you tonight is draft B. And on the sheet, there's one on each side of the sheet. The main heading says DIC recommendation. That is draft B. Give you a quick overview of, we started this back 3-4 months ago with DIC, talking about the requirements, the 75,600 minutes required instruction, what we can do with our exemption from the first day of instruction. Really the things that went into it, or a lot of it went into it, is that campus staff have a 187-day contract. We were trying to get a 180-day student calendar as well, so there's not a lot of wiggle room and a lot of days to play with. We started off with a 3-2-1 survey, which was, what are 3 positive things about the current calendar, 2 items that are fuzzy, or you have questions about, and what's one item that works against us. We gathered a lot of data with that. A couple of things to think about as we started looking at these 2 calendars, and really the difference is pretty small. It has to do when how many teacher work days or professional development days there are at the beginning of the year and when school starts. So you can see in draft A, school started August the 16th, and the teacher work day, PD days were August 8th through 15th. In draft B, teacher work days were August 8th through 14th, and the first day of instruction was scheduled to be on August the 15th. The flip of that, so you swap a day in draft A, the second semester, was to begin on January the 8th. And then on the draft B, there is actually a teacher work day that Monday, January the 8th, that was included in that. And the second semester for students would begin January the 9th. So same things we went into, looking at the first day for teachers, student staff holidays, staff flex day. This is what both plans incorporated in both those. Veterans Day, that's a very important holiday to our community, and we made that known to DIC. Thanksgiving break, there's a pretty strong interest in keeping a week of Thanksgiving break for our staff and our students. And then, the rest of those dates, Christmas holidays, really depend upon when Christmas is, and then also when we come back, when January 1st is. And so you can see some of those adjustments. One thing with these calendars, both of these calendars, is that we actually, it appears that we pushed back the start of school till the 3rd week. And we needed to do that because if we don't, every year it gets earlier and earlier. So we needed to do that. It also pushed the end of school past Labor Day, Memorial Day, sorry about that, not Labor Day, Memorial Day, which what we showed the committee is that it was the same calendar. We had to do that back in 2017 and 18 and 18 and 19. One of those we were a DOI district, and then the other we weren't. So we showed some similarities there. But basically, when it was all said and done, all the feedback and work and collaboration that went into that, the calendar draft B was 91% of the DIC members, voting members, were in favor of that calendar. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Can you just explain the reasoning for, because we've always taken Columbus Day, not taking it this year?
Some of that had to do with when we end the first grading period on the 13th, and that is a half day, but then also in order to incorporate that flex day, having it on the 16th, so there's a longer weekend there for our students and teachers.
And I just have one other question. It had to do with the start and end times. I know that that's something we adjust, year to year if we need to. Do we anticipate any adjustments on the start and end times?
For this next year, only to early release dates possibly, because that will give more time for campuses to really utilize those half days, or those early release days for professional development or PLC, or just to give teachers some time to get things done.
Thank you.
Yeah, the only question I have is the end day in December. Go back to my own memory. Normally, when Christmas would show up in those particular days, Monday, Tuesday, the last day of school is usually the previous Wednesday. That's one question I have. What was the feeling about that particular, I mean, I know it's 24 hours, but if you're trying to get across country, you're trying to get where you're going, that 24 hours can make a bit of a difference. And I don't remember ever having a situation where if you're going to break it, that you break it on a Thursday and not that Wednesday. That seems kind of odd.
I don't recall us breaking it on a Wednesday, but we very well could have. And I think a lot of that had to do with the discussions on giving a couple of days for Christmas, but also trying to squeeze that 180 days in there. That really limited our options for scheduling and things like that. If we were to give up another day, we've got to find it somewhere in the second semester, and that's pretty tight as well. So it could result back in starting school back the 9th because we need it to be a student and staff day.
I think one of the things we could have done was saying, like you're suggesting, Mr. Finley, is get out on that Wednesday, but then come back, say the Wednesday or of that first week of January. So it really is 2 weeks right there. But when you do that, then you lose that third weekend. So we had to really look at a way that we could keep the 3 weekends of the break, but yet be not too close to Christmas on the front end and too far away on the back end. So it's a little clunky. I think we started this conversation by getting out on Friday. We're able to move it a day to Thursday. We certainly could move it up another day, but then we're starting another day earlier, and then we have our kids starting with a full week. And it was one of the things I believe that DIC wanted to try to do is there a way to start with less than a full week for our youngest kiddos that first week of school?
The only other way I could see to make it, that would be doable would be to come back on the 8th, bring students back on the 8th of January. That would make it your day.
And that was one of the strong opinions of the committee, is for the teachers needing that day upon returning. That really, I mean, there were just two options and they were very similar. That was really what weighed in heavily on that. Teachers really feeling like they needed that day to prepare for students, and in turn it was going to benefit students for them to have that day to prepare, especially at our secondary levels with the changes in schedules and semester classes and all of those type of things.
Yeah, having my wife who's a teacher and my daughter's a teacher, I know that extra day coming back is important, so that's why I'm not really going after, like I said, I don't remember ever having a situation where the Thursday was the last day, but I mean, if DIC is okay with it and teacher is okay with it, then I'm not going to stand in the way, but I just thought it was kind of odd, so just throw it out there.
Yeah, I don't think we've had that scenario that you mentioned where Christmas lies on that first Monday since we've been 180, since we've tried to get 180 days. So that, as well as, some of the other things factored into that for sure.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. So, I mean, as long as teachers are okay with it and DIC is okay, I'm not certainly going to stand in the way. I just thought it was kind of interesting. So, okay, very good. Thank you.
You bet. All right, thank you.
I move the Board of Trustees approve the 2023-2024 school year calendar as recommended by the administration.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. Voted? All right. Next, we have a request for board approval, memorandum of understanding for Texas Child Health Access through telemedicine and youth aware of mental health. Dr. Ely.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. We had a great presentation earlier by Ms. Kovacs, and again, special thanks to Misty Phelps from UT Health San Antonio for being here. The administration recommends approval of this item.
I move the Board of Trustees authorize the superintendent to finalize and execute the memorandum of understanding as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I was just going to make a comment. I think this is something that is going to be very beneficial to our students. I wish we could have brought this sooner, but I realize it takes time to get all this done, and I'm really looking forward to them coming on board and providing the additional services. I think it's very much needed at this time. So wish it wasn't, but it is. We have to do what we have to do. So I appreciate it.
Anyone else? All right, thank you. Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. Okay, next we have request for board approval, updated board operating procedures. That's presented by yours truly. We've seen this a couple times, and we all have a copy of the changes we made at the last discussion.
I move the Board of Trustees approve the changes as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I was just gonna say, I think this is a better version. It'll probably change again as time goes on. But that's also a good thing because it means that we can modify our operating procedures based on the needs of that particular time, and I think that's a good thing. I think every year we need to have this kind of discussion to see where we're at and do we make revisions? And if we do, we can make those revisions as necessary. If not, then we continue on. But for us to review our board operating procedures every year and then recertify that these are our board operating procedures, I think is a good thing to do. So I wholeheartedly agree with the changes. And again, I think we're getting a better process. So I'm really looking forward to next year, and maybe we'll make some more changes. If not, then that's good too. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. Now we're going into closed session. This board will now adjourn into closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Texas Government Code Section 551.074, authorization to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, or to hear a complaint or charge against an officer or employee. It is 8:33. All right, open session, we've got requests for board approval, approval of board action, approval of employment contractual personnel presented by Linda Cannon.
Yes, the positions on the employment list as presented in closed session are replacing positions for the 22-23 school year and will be funded from the general operating budget.
Mr. President, I move the Board of Trustees approve the employment list as presented of contractual personnel for the 2022-2023 school year.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. Next, we have board items for review and discussion.
So January 19th is the Region 20 Advocacy Training Lunch over at Northside. On January 17th through the 21st, taking place right now, is the Guadalupe County Youth Show. January 23rd at 6 p.m. is the Special Olympics Basketball Skills Competition. On January 23rd is the second session of the SCUC Mental Health and Safety Series. On January 25th is the Special Olympics Area Special Olympics Tournament. On the 27th, there is Coffee with the Chamber. On the 28th is the Health and Home Show. Who's sponsoring that? Schertz Civic Center? Oh, sponsored by the Chamber, got it. Yeah. On February 1st is the CCAC. On February 6th through the 7th is TASB, the Federal Advocacy Conference in Washington, D.C., which Mr. Finley and Ms. Evans are going to. On February 8th is the DIC meeting. On February 9th is the Northeast Partnership Luncheon. On the 11th is Clemens UIL Academics at MacArthur High School. And February 14th, we will have a called board meeting. And then on the 14th also is the Tri-County Chamber Luncheon.
Thank you. Also brought to my attention that we, in a future board, should discuss our belief statements and we'll make sure they're current with our current strategy and make sure that they're all still something we want to do. Do we want to try to discuss that next month or the month after?
Next month, is this a part of discussing what we will do as board training? Are you
No, I'm
wanting to
talking-
talk about that at a meeting or go into board training?
Board training may be as good a place as any to discuss it.
Okay, I think maybe next month. I think a good thing would be to discuss our upcoming board training, because we're required to do board training, and then all the things that we can throw into it, and I'm thinking that might be something we can throw into it.
Yep.
So next month, I guess the request is to discuss the Team of 8 training.
Right. Good.
Just, there's a back side to this thing right here. I can do it. It's the EPAC has Senate Bill 11 meeting on the 16th, student staff holiday on the 20th, TAS attached to legislative conference in Austin. We're all going to that. And then our regular board meeting on the 21st.
Thank you. Anything else?
Wondering if it's appropriate or when we should discuss if we should, Stosh Boyle has been a tireless supporter of our district, and I'll leave it at that. I don't know if and when we can recognize him, or if you want to. I'm just saying he's been there for us, that's all.
Right. That's a good point. Maybe that's something we should discuss at training also next month. Good. Any, oh, by the ways?
Move to adjourn.
All right, we're adjourned at 9:58.